Good afternoon. We will get started in just another minute.
Hello, everybody. Hope you're having a wonderful Monday. Thank you so much for joining us today. We know your schedules are all incredibly busy as you work to serve the 5.5 million kids across the state of Texas, and we're honored that you're spending part of your day with us. My name is Andrew Hodge. I'm the Director of Innovative Instructional Models at Texas Education Agency, and we're excited today to be able to release our first set of Texas Home Learning instructional materials, and we will be starting with K-12 math, and so that's what we will be reviewing over the next 30 minutes. I'm joined today by my colleague Melissa Lautenschlager, who will be giving you an in-depth look at the materials that are available, as well as the next steps and the releases that will happen over the course of this school year. So as we get started, please ask questions, and we will answer as many as we possibly can within the next 28 minutes or so. Please use the Q&A function on Zoom so that we can capture these. We are also compiling an FAQ document that we'll host on texasHomeLearning.org. So with that, let's go ahead and jump in. We have seen, slide control. Melissa, if you don't mind, can we go to the next slide, please? Thanks so much. So this is a part of the Texas Home Learning Implementation webinar series. So a few weeks ago, we had the Adapt and Adopt webinar series, and you can find those recordings on the TEA website under the Strong Start resources. Looking forward, the way that we think about supporting Texas Home Learning is by supporting both our technology supports, which is part of the Texas Home Learning model, and then also the product and product and user specific onboarding resources. But today, what we're excited to speak with you all about is the product specific adoption. So today is the materials launch for K-12 math, and so we will be reviewing that over the next few minutes. And so that is the plan for today. Specifically, what that means is that we'll root in a few FAQs before we get started, just to make sure that we're all on the same page before then we turn over and dive into the resources available with Eureka Math TEKS edition, which is kindergarten through 5th grade, and then going into Carnegie Learning Texas Math Solution, which is the 6th through 12th grade. We will then wrap up with sharing a little bit more about how and when and where you can access materials. You can access the first set of materials today, which Melissa will go over in a minute, but then getting you the information about when these materials will come out in the next few weeks. So as a reminder, Texas Home Learning 3.0 is an fully optional, aligned set of resources that educators and really anybody in the state of Texas can use either fully or in part to support this new learning environment. And there are 3 components of it: instructional materials, technology, and professional development. And the highlight here is that all of this is being created specifically for this learning environment, specifically for Texas teachers and Texas students. And so we appreciate you bearing with us as we do develop these resources in a quick turnaround, but also recognizing that y'all have a lot going on, and we have students starting across the state of Texas each and every week. So want to just quickly bounce back to the technology component of Texas Home Learning 3.0. The Texas Education Agency has partnered with Schoology. Schoology is a learning management system, and we have organized a statewide license for Schoology for any interested LEA, any LEA that wants to take advantage of this opportunity, absolutely for free for the next 2 years, as long as you begin before March 1st. We've had about 300 districts that have already contracted with Schoology to take advantage of this offer. There are another 250 or so that are still in that pipeline. So pretty high adoption thus far in the state of Texas. So if you have not signed up and you are interested, please go to powerschool.com/Texas to learn more. With that, I want to hand it over to my colleague, Melissa Lautenschlager, to walk you through the K-12 math materials for Texas Home Learning. Melissa.
Thank you, Andrew. I'm going to go ahead and get started for today and talk about what's released, and people are excited to see this. So let's get started looking at our materials. We're going to just quickly review that we do have 2 different math products. For K-5, we have Eureka Math TEKS Edition under the publisher Great Minds. And so we'll be talking about that first. And then we have a 6-12 math product, which is Carnegie Learning Texas Math Solutions. As we go into this, I'm going to spend a little bit of time going over some FAQs that a lot of people have front of mind, and then I'll be showing you how to access materials and what's available. So the 3 most common questions that we're getting are, do the Texas Home Learning 3.0 instructional materials align to the TEKS resource system? Do I need Schoology to use them? And when will they be released, of course? So jumping first into the question about TEKS resource system, the products are being built by Carnegie Learning and Great Minds to specifically support Texas. However, they are strategically designed with a scope and sequence that is unique to the product. Therefore, they do not align to the TEKS resource system. However, we want to support districts interested in transitioning to the use of Texas Home Learning instructional materials. So we'll be providing some additional analysis and guidance to help support what does it mean to move to a new product if you've been using the TEKS resource system. And then the other third piece about this is that mixing and adapting the product scope and sequence and associated lessons is not recommended, given that the units and lessons are intentionally ordered to build upon one another. Again, though, we'll be providing some additional support and guidance because you might have already started with something but are interested in moving on to using Texas Home Learning. The other question that we see is about Schoology. You do not have to use Schoology to access the materials, and I'll show you how to get it into them today. And you can use Schoology, which can provide some additional enhancements, as well as integrate the resource into your own LMS system that you currently have. So if you have another product you're using. So there are many options available for using the materials. Again, these are all optional and you're able to bring them into your own system, utilize the Schoology option, or access the materials directly on the website of the publisher. We wanted to share a little bit about release dates. So today I'm going to be talking about a few materials that are released from the Eureka Math TEKS edition, and we will look at some materials that'll help you get started and understand what's coming out. And then you will see over the course of this week, you're going to see lesson 1 and their Learn Anywhere plan be released along with associated materials. And then we'll see more materials coming out throughout September, including the equip, which we talked about last week on our webinar regarding Texas home learning and the Eureka Math. Equip is that formative assessment tool that helps support to identify unfinished learning and make decisions, strategic decisions about your pacing and what additional support student needs. That'll be coming out in late September. The Carnegie, oh, sorry about that. The Carnegie Learning is really going to be, is being released today, and you'll be able to see some of the materials. Okay, technical difficulties, sorry. Carnegie Learning is going to be released today. You'll be able to see some of the front matter and overview as well as topic 1. And then through mid-September, the next topics will be coming out, and you can see the release schedule here. So I'm really going to jump in today by going to the site at texasHomeLearning.org and walk you through some of the materials that are available for release today. So if you are following along, you can also go to texasHomeLearning.org. This is really your jumping off site for convenience to help support in the materials. So looking here, we're going to be updating this. We're going to be updating the site frequently to provide additional information as we release webinars and such. Going here, I'm going to jump into the instructional materials. And once I'm there, if you scroll down, you'll be able to see the math and other products that are coming out. Sorry, my internet looks like it's slow, so there we go. If I click on Eureka Math, where I want to direct you is on this page. It helps to provide some additional information and key features. Our webinar from last week is located here. But more importantly, when I jump onto this icon.
Melissa, I'm going to interrupt you really quick. If you're using a headphone, can you just check your connection? You're a little bit spotty.
Okay, I apologize. Can you hear me better now?
Yep, that actually is better, for me at least.
Okay. I think there might be some internet, so I apologize. Jump in if I have more issues. As I go to this page from the Texas Home Learning site for Eureka, I'm going to scroll down. You'll get to see a lot of information about the supports and what's provided in our Eureka Math TEKS edition. But when I go down to program material supports, you can see what's going to be available for teachers. One of the first questions is about the actual scope and sequence. And so there's a way to see this. Okay, asked. When I go to this page, I'm able to actually see by grade level where each of the TEKS are addressed within the modules. This is one view to be able to see that all TEKS are covered in the modules, and you can see it by the grade levels, which modules and in which sequence. So that'll help get you started to understand the progression of topics and content over grades K through 5. If I go back to this page and I scroll down a little bit more, understanding what will be available for students and the equip, which is coming later in September, I can then actually go straight to materials here. And when I go to this page, this is actually a view only, so they're working to update and enhance their digital in sync site, which will have those fillable PDFs, but we wanted to make sure you were able to access materials today and see what's available. So I'm actually going to preview some things that are in grade 4. When I go to the InSync and I click on module 1, some of the top items that are available today for you to look at is the module 1 overview. In this overview, it helps you better understand what the topics are within module 1, provides some content and background information that supports teachers in understanding the progression of the topic, different strategies used. Following down here, you're also able to see specifically. Okay, I have a question of how did I get to here? So I'll take you back for a second. If you go to Texas Home Learning, I clicked on instructional materials, scrolled down to Eureka Math, and then clicked right on this icon. Then going back here, scroll down to the bottom, I could look at teacher parent resources, or I could explore the Eureka Math directly on this button. So letting people know where we are again. On that button that I clicked on, I went to grade 4 and I'm starting to look at the module information. So the module overview provides a lot of information about the content, great use for your professional learning communities and in preparation, especially if you've not taught this grade level before. But then understanding which standards are going to be introduced, addressed, and mastered. And there's an opportunity to see what are the foundational standards that vertically align to the topic to be able to understand what students need to know coming in. You can see the process standards, and then you'll be able to see an overview of the lesson objectives going throughout the module and some suggested pacing days. Within the overview, you'll also see a lot of familiar terminology that's important for understanding the material, and suggested tools and representations so that you can help students who may need to go back to representation if they're working with abstract concepts. There's support here as well with the fluency piece on administering sprints for students so that they're practicing fluency that we talked about. And then moving into more opportunities to share instructional practices that are referenced within the lessons. In addition, there are some scaffolding information, and instructions are really recommendations on how to approach and break down the module as well as the lesson, given that this may be a new resource for you and you haven't really interacted with these materials. So there's a lot of information that's provided in the overview that's very helpful in studying prior to teaching. And then another material that's available is we have our mid-module and end-of-module assessments. In the module, end-of-module assessment, you can go in and see that there are a lot of open-ended questions, especially for this point of the year, because you're really trying to see the strategies and thinking of students to better help identify unfinished learning and potential gaps. But because this is a grade level assessed math content, there also will be some appearance of multiple choice questions that are STAR-like, so that students have the experience of answering multiple choice questions similar to how they'll be assessed at the end of the year. Additional information and materials will continue to be provided here. This site, I just want to name, is a read-only. They are updating the site so that it has the full digital functionality in which students and teachers would be able to have those fillable PDFs and access to videos as those are being developed. I'm gonna go, I did share again that pacing. I know some people had some questions, so I'll go back really quick. That was on the Eureka page underneath the for teachers, and you can find the standards coverage right there. I'm going to jump in now and return back to our Texas Home Learning main page so that I can explain Carnegie and what's going to be available there. If I click on the instructional materials again, instead of selecting Eureka, I'm going to select Carnegie Learning Texas Math Solutions. On this page, you will be able to find some additional information about the Carnegie Learning Texas Math Solution product. our recorded webinar from last week. And then you're able to actually go ahead and begin to explore sample materials, or I can click on the icon and it will bring me to a main page for Carnegie Learning. Carnegie is also working on their digital page to provide a lot more usability for teachers, but wanted to provide the materials very quickly for you. So you're able to actually begin exploring the materials here and access the files that are in a drive, but this will not be the final landing page for this. We'll be able to see those a little bit later. As I jumped into them, I can go into each of the courses that are available. The accelerated courses for middle school will be coming on pretty quickly and added to this list. I want to take you through some of the common materials that are found in Carnegie Learning so that you're familiar with them. So I'm going to open up some of my documents here to share with you. So on this page, you can see I have an Algebra 2 pacing guide. All of the different courses in Carnegie Learning have a pacing guide that looks like this, where it is an outline of the modules. It provides the lessons, the specific titles, the alignment to the TEKS, and suggested pacing is provided. In addition, you see this component where there's a Mathia added. That's the digital adaptive program that works blended with the core materials in order for students to have both a adaptive program that is specialized for them as well as core learning. And then you can see that there are end of topic assessments, and you're able to go through and see what's the progression for this course. The next material that you'll be able to find within the product is a high-level teacher implementation guide by course. And so key pieces in here that I think are really important is it helps you understand what is the actual research and approach, what is the lesson design, instructional design to this product. You can also see an outline of the blended learning component and why and how Mathia works in coordination with the other materials. And then you'll see the table of contents for the entire course and the progression of lessons, so you can get an idea of what's happening in a different format than that pacing guide. Then working through here, some other pieces that I think are interesting to mention is about the design a little bit more, and then providing a lot of content information that's helpful for the course holistically. Then you will have a place where the lesson structure is outlined to better understand how the lessons are set up and where there are supports in here about instructional practices or methods that are used within the Carnegie Learning product. And in addition to that, you'll see some instructional practices and types of problems that you would see throughout the lessons in different modules. The next material that is really helpful to look at is the teacher edition of the module. So in Algebra 2 here, the first module is the solving systems of equations, and you'll be able to see the progression of lessons, understand the activities that are occurring, and then it talks through facilitation notes to support teachers as they're instructing, identifying some common misconceptions and questions to ask to support, differentiation strategies, and continues to support with each individual lesson. The student materials will be those fillable PDFs once they're on the full digital platform, but for now you can actually see our PDF forms of the materials that students would be interacting with. Additionally, there are additional assignments for students. This could be used as homework or to be able to do some quick checks of how students are doing with particular topics and lesson sets. I'm going to return now to our back to the Carnegie site, because I want to call out one more important component of Carnegie Learning for you to explore and look at. So I'm back to Texas Home Learning. That's your home space every time. Went back to Carnegie Learning. And on this page, you can go all the way to the bottom of the Carnegie Learning. And one important component that I think is great for people to work out and try are these demos for Mathia. So there is a middle school facing and a high school. They actually look a little bit different because of the age group. And I would strongly suggest, as one of your action steps in looking over the materials, is take some time to walk through the demo and understand how this adaptive program is individualized for students and their ability to get immediate feedback on the work that they're doing. I'm going to return to our main slides and pause for a minute to see if some of the questions, and then I'll talk a little bit more about reviewing materials access and upcoming webinars. Okay. So some questions that I'm seeing. There's a lot of questions and conversation about Zern and great minds and different things. I want to again explicitly call out that the materials being developed for Texas are specific to Texas from Great Minds, and so there is this ongoing review and providing specific guidance for our Texas TEKs. I'm going to come back to a couple questions with my colleagues here in just a minute, but before we do that, I wanted to make sure to talk about, again, that we do have more materials that will be coming out as soon as possible for other content areas and grade levels. We now have our K-12 being released, and it will continue to update the sites that I showed you today. For Eureka Math TEKs edition, we will see lesson 1 materials, but you can see quite a bit available on the site today. And then we'll continue to roll out over the course of September additional materials, and that equip should be out later this month to help with formative assessment. And we'll continue to update the modules through our review and approval process. For Carnegie Learning, our 612 product, we have many materials that you're able to see today, and then they will be put onto the digital platform in the next few days, with more topics being released later this month and early in October. As we are continuing to add information and update with additional supports and resources, please continue to visit texashomelearning.org as your main page for being updated on information and to be able to see all materials. I am going to pause for a minute and ask some of my fellow TA colleagues to jump in with answering questions, as many as we can before the end of this webinar.
There's a question about whether there will be anything from Texas Home Learning for secondary science or social studies. Currently, there is not a plan for secondary science or social studies materials, but for kindergarten through 5th grade, science and social studies materials, they are coming. And we can always explore additional options, but currently Texas Home Learning will only be kindergarten through 5th grade science and social studies.
I see some questions about instructional videos. Yes, instructional videos are coming out as well for people to access and will be being updated on the sites that I shared today. They will be coming out shortly. They also have to go through an extensive review and approval process.
Melissa, we have a question. If you could go back to the timeline for Carnegie real quick.
Sure.
While you're going there and while folks are reviewing that, there's a question about when can we anticipate ELA. As y'all know, and as we've been trying to communicate, we are going from solicitation to contracting to review of these development of these resources and review. And so we're moving just about as fast as you possibly could within the confines of the state agency. So the question to when can we anticipate ELA is not one that I like to give, nor one that I like to receive, which is soon and TBD. But I will tell you that those contracts are in the late stages, and we will pass that information directly to you as soon as we know more. Melissa, do you mind navigating to the Mathia demo?
Sure. If you go to if you go to Texas Home Learning and we clicked on the instruction materials and then Carnegie Learning, if I go to this main page, you can explore the materials and jump into those materials today so you can begin reviewing. And then the digital platform is coming later this week. And then if you scroll all the way down, you're able to get to the Mathia demos for you to be able to use. As far as setting up for your students to use, you would want to work with you want to be able to set up the district rostering account to be able to use Mathia with your students. And if you push the Get Started Today, that'll help to fill out information so that they can contact you and help you with that setup. I know we're a little over time, so as far as additional questions that we were unable to get to, we're going to be, posting the recording of this webinar today on our Texas Home Learning site, and then we will work to answer additional questions we were unable to get to during the webinar. Appreciate your time. If you have additional questions for us, please feel free to email us at texashomeLearning@tea.texas.org, and we will get back to you as soon as we're able to. Thank you for joining us today, and have a great afternoon.